Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Keeler Centre and our third installment of Prosper in Northumberland. What an amazing crowd it is to see everybody coming out here tonight. You never know when you put something on like this, everybody's going to show up, and you did. It's great to see such enthusiastic people with a vested interest in what's happening in our business communities and tonight specifically in our downtowns. Welcome. Right now I'd like to bring up one of our committee members for Prosper in Northumberland to give you an official welcome and a little bit of a history on Prosper in Northumberland and where we're going moving forward. Please welcome Mr. Dave Hughes.
Thank you very much, York. Yes, I just wanted to give, this is our third event, as York had mentioned, for Prosper in Northumberland, and I just want to give you a bit of a background, because it's really growing. We thought we were going to do an event once, and here we are the third, and you'll hear later tonight about our fourth event coming up in October. But really, it was in February of 2012, we organized a committee made up predominantly of media in Northumberland County at that time, because we felt that a lot of retailers in the communities that we reach were a little down on the economy, and we thought this might be a way to help change the consciousness of the retail community, make them feel better about business, and that business is vibrant in Northumberland County. So we then expanded that committee. We went to the County of Northumberland just on a whim and talked to Bill Pyatt and Dan Borowick about our idea, and they immediately jumped on board. Financially was the key here. We didn't have any money to put this thing together, but we went forward, and very much thankful of the support we're getting at all these events from the County of Northumberland, because we couldn't do it if we didn't have their financial backing to pay for our speakers. We started out, as I said, in February of 2012, and we had our first event in May 2012. Really, in a very short period of time, we put together a pretty strong event. And for those of you that were there, and this is just some shots of some of the events that we've held in our Prosper in Northumberland events. And our first event was, we brought in Barb Stegman. For those of you who were there, she was just a very entertaining speaker, an entrepreneur from the East Coast, originally from the East Coast. She was one of the finalists on the TV show Dragon's Den. And we had about 250 people at the Park Theatre in Colborne. And then after the success of that event, our committee expanded, and we got the involvement of all the chambers of commerce throughout the area, the DBIA, the HBIA in Port Hope, and some other business people, and certainly allowed us to really expand on the second go-around, and that was last October when we put on an event at the Capitol Theatre in Port Hope. And we were very fortunate to have a very dynamic entrepreneurial gentleman by the name of Donald Cooper. For those of you who were there, he was very entertaining, and he's part of the Cooper sports family. If you all played hockey or baseball when you were younger, you had Cooper sportswear that you put on. And Donald was an excellent speaker, and we were very, and he was talking about customer service. So that was the theme really of the second go-around for Prosper in Northumberland. And then we said, okay, let's put on another event. So something that started out as one event is now three. And tonight you're going to hear from Kennedy Lawson Smith. And she is likewise very entertaining. We spent an evening with her last night. And she has got some great insights, not only into life, but into the downtowns. And I think you're really going to really like what she has to say tonight. We're going to have a panel as well. Ask some questions of Kennedy, and she has done this before many times, so I think you're going to be very pleased with what you hear today. I do want to thank Mark Coombs and the people of the residents in the county, or not the residents of the county, yes certainly, but Crammy Township for hosting us tonight. As I said, we've been in Colborne, Port Hope, this now in Crammy, and later you're going to hear that we're going to be in Campbellford, so in October. So we have a lot on the agenda tonight, and again, I want to thank all the local media. I'd like to thank some of the media from outside the Colborne Port Hope area that have jumped on board to assist us, and that's My FM, We'd also like to thank CKOL up in Campbellford, who also came on to support us as well. So we've got the support right across the entire county. And I think that speaks volumes of how we view Northumberland County as being a big community. And if we can continue that, and if you can pick up one or two excellent ideas today when you leave here, then I think we've accomplished what we wanted to accomplish. We really weren't sure holding the event here, especially during the playoffs for the NHL, and we weren't sure if we were going to get a crowd that we anticipated. And I got to tell you, as York said, this is far better than what we've had in our plans. And there are a few seats, just so some people, if you need to move a little closer to the front, there are some seats up here for people to sit as well. So again, I want to thank all the committee members who have worked very hard to put this together. And I want to thank you all for coming here on this Thursday night. We hope you enjoy what you're going to see and you take something away that will help your business prosper in Northumberland. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Dave. Do we have any fans of the television show Seinfeld in the audience? Well, there's got to be more Seinfeld fans than that. I'm gonna call Jerry, like right now. I'm gonna use your phone because it's long distance, Dave. So, you may remember one of the Seinfeld episodes dealing with downtowns. If not, we'll refresh your memory right now.
And I guess you'll be heading downtown then, huh?
Oh yeah, downtown, definitely.
Well, I'm very interested to see how this thing turns out.
Yeah, you said it. Excuse me, Mr. Butler. Do you really think? Is this downtown trip really necessary? You know, for the project?
Oh no, you've got to be downtown, George. It's all downtown, just like the song says.
The song?
There's your answer. Downtown.
The song Downtown? You mean the Petula Clark song?
Yeah.
You sure you didn't just mention it because you happen to be going downtown?
I think he was trying to tell me something, like it had some sort of a meaning.
Okay, so how does it go?
When you're alone, and life is making you lonely, you can always go
Downtown.
Maybe you know some little places to go where they never close.
Downtown.
There's little places to go where they never close. What's a little place that never closes?
7-Eleven?
Just listen to the music of the traffic in the city. Linger on the sidewalk where the neon lights are pretty. Where the neon lights are pretty. The Broadway area?
No, that's Midtown.
The lights are much brighter there. You can forget all your troubles, forget all your cares, just go.
Down.
Great. When you're
Downtown. Well, don't hang around and let your troubles surround you. There are movie shows.
Jerry Seinfeld, of course. We are very fortunate to have a number of downtowns in Northumberland County, and right now I would like to feature some of the businesses that are in our downtowns.
Also a Victorian bed and breakfast and Victorian tea room. The feedback I've had from customers and guests is that they like the combination. They really enjoy the fact that they can stay here and eat all of their meals besides just breakfast here at Summerhill. It's a heritage home, and luckily I brought most of my furniture from the UK back here with me, and it is mostly antique and lends itself to the Victorian era. I think the advantage of being the owner and living on the premises of the business is that we are available to our customers and our guests 24/7. We are available to be able to advise and guide people, answer any of their questions, and refer them to other businesses on Wall Street downtown. Although it's primarily English food, English fare, traditional homemade English fare, we're bringing in people from all different nationalities and age groups. Often it doesn't feel like one because we find so much of interest within the different people that you're hosting. I see the Main Street becoming, in the future, much busier. I'd love to see it bustling all throughout every season, all throughout the year. I mean, obviously in the summer we have lots of tourists come through. I see that there will be stronger communication between all of the store owners and the retailers in the downtown area. I see some good, new, fresh ideas being brought to the table that I know are going to be implemented. There's some fantastic people in the downtown core that have been very supportive and encouraging and inspiring and have really helped with my building of the business, building the building.
We've been in business for over 18 years and loving every minute of it. We sell everything from paint to electrical to plumbing. It looks like a small little store, but we have a lot of stuff, you know, and you know, and they think, oh, little store, I can be very competitive. Well, we belong to a chain of 1,100 stores. We're very competitive. We're right downtown Colborne. It's got beautiful architecture. It's, you know, it's got wide streets. It's beautiful. It's perfect for all our walk-in traffic. You know, I mean, if we were up by the 401, I don't think we'd get as much business. You know, because we get a lot of people that literally walk in a store. I think we're one of the stores that anchor our community, and as a result, I mean, we're busy all the time, right? It all comes down to your staff, you know, and our staff is fantastic, you know, I mean, and everyone knows that. Everyone that comes in can, you know, get help from any one of our staff members. It drives people in again and again and again. I think one of our successes is the fact that we love what we do. I mean, you know, you have to love what you do if you're going to work 6-7 days a week, or else why would you be doing it?
One of the major challenges we face is maintaining our building. It's an extreme financial investment. It costs a lot of money to fix up the old buildings, and I'd like to see them all fixed up and restored to what they used to look like. Because it was a beautiful town, a very vibrant town at one time, and I think it can be again. But I'd really like to see that we keep the heritage of the town, and that's what we'd like to do with our buildings.
But I think Colborne's going to grow. For sure. We have no choice. We're on the 401 corridor, you know, there's building going on. Things are going to happen, for sure. You can't stay the same forever. Things will progress.
I believe that the majority of the anchoring businesses are downtown, so I see it staying that way.
I'm the owner of Blue House, and I'm currently involved in the DVIA, and I act as president for that association. 2 years ago, I fell in love with this beautiful heritage home, and you can't just go around collecting homes, so I had to do something with it. And in talking to the residents in Brighton, I kept hearing over and over again, we need a gift store, we need some place to go and buy a gift. So that's where the idea came about. So we have gifts for all occasions, weddings, birthdays, anniversaries, and the women just love our store. I wanted to carry products that you couldn't find at Home Sense or Walmart or Winners. I wanted something totally different so that people could come in and find something interesting, unique, and at a good price point. I think the success is in the business itself, and saying that we opened just over 2 years ago and we're still in business. It's not easy being a small town retail store owner, but I think the success comes from the locals who really support us and love to shop locally. We have a lot of followers, the town has embraced us. We opened a gallery just a year ago, and that has been a great success also. There's many artists in the area, and it gives them an opportunity to show their artwork and to sell it. The DVIA in Brighton has a wonderful group of people involved. We started looking at how we were going to beautify the town. We looked at how should we market Brighton as a group. The DVIA is also involved in sponsoring events that occur during the year, and also involved in putting on events to increase awareness and bring more people to the downtown area. I don't feel that it's a challenge being on Main Street. I feel it's a great opportunity. I always feel that if I was on the first block of Main Street, my business would be seen more. I find that sometimes people don't walk to the second block, but as Brighton grows and the businesses grow and the Main Street expands more, I don't see that as a problem. Being on Main Street puts us kind of in the eye of everybody coming downtown. I'd like to see it have a bit of a European flair to it, more flowers, more planters, more benches. I would like to see the downtown become a destination place where people can come and shop and eat and visit, sit, look around. We have more and more people moving to the area. We have a lot of tourists coming into town because they hear about us. So I see the town, or even the downtown area, growing.
I've been a potter for 30 years. Previously, I was based out of my home just south of town, and my husband and I moved to Warkworth 8 years ago. Bought an old rundown building and renovated and put in our gallery and my studio. My husband's a glass blower, Paul Zhang, and he doesn't work out of here. He has a glass studio where he blows glass at our home still. And I was able to not only have my studio here, but run classes, pottery classes, and run an art camp out of here in the summertime as well. We were attracted to Warkworth because of because we had a number of friends that were artists that lived in this community, and we also found a number of our clients were in this community. It's easy to get to. We liked what was happening with the downtown. The businesses, the buildings have been renovated or were in the process of being renovated, and interesting businesses opening up, and very unique businesses. We also have a service club and a business association that gets things done. We do cooperative advertising, which helps to promote the community as a whole, but also shows off the talent that we have here in town. And there's always an event happening in town. We're all part of it. We all help out in our way. Some of the challenge for us here is not being on Main Street, just being around the corner from Main Street. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to people and they have been here many, many times on Main Street around the corner, but they have never been around the corner to this area. And we're only a minute and a half away from Main Street. I'd like to see more young families moving to town and more options for the kids. That's the biggest challenge right now, is finding the next generation and getting them to come out and visit, or settle in a small town. That's what I really want to see.
Co-own and operate All Creatures Great and Small in beautiful downtown Cobourg. We've been located here in what we call the heart of downtown for over 13 years, and we offer all natural pet care and supplies, professional grooming for dogs and cats, positive-based obedience training, and certified chiropractic care. I think what sets us apart is our range of products, knowledge, and service. We carry products you can't find anywhere else, and we really have a special knowledge in terms of raw feeding and holistic health for dogs and cats. We're also growing every year, so that's huge. Our business is not stagnating. So as well, we employ 9 people, 5 full-time employees, including my business partner and myself, 3 part-time and a subcontractor, so we're very proud of that. Those people are supporting their families. That's a huge success for us. We participate in a variety of community events and have a variety of fundraising events over the years, including our annual dog shows, our weight pull competition, and most recently our community-based project that we do with the Northumberland Humane Society, our cat adoption window. And we have adopted out from our location well over 140 cats since October of last year. So we're very proud of that. Downtown Coburg, I think, is uniquely positioned. We're located on the edge of a beautiful waterfront. We have a lovely heritage downtown with some beautiful buildings, as well as a variety of really unique stores. The people down here are vibrant. We have a variety of people who are just new and people who've been here for over 30 to 40 years. We have a large number of businesses that are open 7 days a week, so that's nice. I think consistent hours and Sunday shopping is extremely, extremely important for the success of any downtown, as well as customer service. The main challenges that I see our Main Street and our downtown core facing are consistency in hours, first and foremost. It's very, very important for people, our locals, shoppers, other business owners, as well as our day trippers and our visitors to Coburg, to know that they can come and visit our downtown core and they'll know that the majority of our stores are open. I'd like to see more walkability, more bike paths to downtown Coburg. Obviously, I would like to see every storefront filled. Lots of greenery and color, and I would love to see some of the core businesses that we need filled in downtown Coburg. I would love to see grocery, hardware. We need those 2 services filled in downtown Coburg. And what I see right now, just being out on the street and talking to other business owners and being actively involved in the downtown business improvement area, is I see a new wave of enthusiasm from the business owners. They're positive thinkers, they're progressive, they're looking for change, they want to be successful. And I think the more people that are on board doing that, that's when we're going to be successful. So I see Coburg growing, and I see everyone wanting to come to Coburg to shop.
Let's hear it for our panelists. Well, if we're ready to start talking about downtown, we're going to do just that. We are very, very lucky here tonight to have Kennedy Lawson Smith. It says here she's one of the nation's foremost experts on commercial district revitalization. I'm going to go as far as to say one of the world's foremost experts. Also, independent Main Street businesses, economically and environmentally sound community development. Kennedy has served as a consultant in towns and cities in all 50 U.S. states, here in Canada, the United Kingdom, Italy, and Singapore as well. Again, we are very, very lucky to have her here in Northumberland County, and let's make her feel really welcome. A big Northumberland County welcome to Kennedy Lawson Smith.
That was a fun video, wasn't it? That was great. Some people have asked me yesterday and today as I've been traveling around how I got involved in downtown revitalization, and I thought I would just tell the story once and explain it, because it's not a career path that you kind of think when you start out you're going to get involved in downtown revitalization. I actually went to graduate school to be an architect. Any architects here that I'm about to annoy? Okay, well, sorry about that. I did graduate school, and I felt like at the end of it I'd spent 3.5 years learning how to do beautiful drawings, but if you asked me how to install a window, I wouldn't have a clue. And I thought I should probably get some practical knowledge about how buildings work. And I also, it was kind of funny, I was always drawn to the downtown of the community where I'd gone to grad school. Really liked the way that the buildings as a whole worked, and so I think I was looking to take a break. And so I decided to work for a construction company for a little while so that I could actually learn how to build buildings so that I wouldn't be left off job sites in the future when I was an architect. And the construction company that I got a job with was, at that time, working almost exclusively on downtown building rehabilitation projects. This was in Charlottesville, Virginia. Anybody know Charlottesville? It's a beautiful, beautiful place. And so I was downtown every day working on these buildings. And they had a merchants association that had been in place for, I don't know, probably 15 or 20 years at that point, ever since the first major shopping center was built in town, and everybody went into a panic and thought that the downtown was going to die, and they put this merchants group together to begin doing marketing activities. And they had a director who was insane. She decided her first year on the job she was going to do 52 major festivals, not like little things like sidewalk sales, but it was going to be like a major, like marching bands and hot air balloons and floats and the whole thing. 52. She was nuts. And so I was downtown every day, and I said, wouldn't it be nice if you also like focused on the fact that we've got 35 ground floor vacancies downtown? It'd be nice to like maybe develop some businesses. And she was like, yeah, good idea, but I don't really have time because I have this astronaut flying in for this event we're doing on Saturday. So, but since you have these graphic skills going to waste, since you went to architecture school, why don't you volunteer for me and design posters and t-shirts for my events? So I volunteered for her and designed posters and t-shirts for her events for a year or so. My most popular one was for the Central Virginia Handicapped Advocacy Festival, which was at that time the largest wheelchair race in the country. And it only had Braille dots on the t-shirt, and it said in Braille, if you can read this shirt, get your hands off my chest. They sold thousands of t-shirts. It was a well-funded event. So my graphic skills were in demand. And after, I don't know, a year or so, the poor woman who was the director of this merchants group had to go off and have a rest. So she's growing orchids in the mountains of Virginia now. She talks to me every few years. And her board asked me if I would take her place. And I was young and I didn't really know what I was saying. And before the word yes was out of my mouth, I realized I don't know what I'm doing. What they really need was somebody who knows how to fill storefronts. And I think they hired me thinking that my design background would balance her sort of promotional madness, and what they really needed was somebody who knew something about business development or economics, which I later learned are not all the same thing. So I went back to school and started, learning a little bit about business development and economics. We probably need to turn these lights down so that the slides are more visible. They went up a second ago.
I got it, Kennedy.
So, I thought the first thing I should do is to start with downtown workers. We had 5,000 people who worked downtown every day, a captive market, and I should survey them and learn what kinds of things they like and don't like about the downtown, where they shop for different things. So I surveyed them, and I learned a lot of things I probably wish I hadn't learned, but one of them was that even though we had 21 restaurants downtown that were open at lunchtime, these people were not eating there. They were getting in their cars and driving out to the highway and having lunch at the fast food restaurants. Which I later learned, I didn't realize at the time, was because we had really great restaurants downtown, but they were really slow. And you couldn't get in and out in an hour and get back to work. And so people were just bypassing them and going out to the strip to have lunch. So I thought, I need to find some way to keep these people downtown at lunchtime. And I'd sort of figured out that if I could get 50 downtown workers to eat lunch who were not currently eating lunch downtown, I could bump up lunchtime restaurant sales by 2%. It was a pretty modest goal, 50 people, 2% increase in sales. So what do I do to do this? After my poor predecessor went insane doing major promotional events, I launched a major promotional event. It was a live daily soap opera called Noontime Downtown. Went from 12:15 to 12:45, Monday through Friday for 8 weeks in the summer. And it was outrageously funny. We had a drama student at the university who sort of drafted a script outline for us. The actors and actresses were all people who worked downtown. We started with a woman who was a nurse at the university hospital who wanted to be in it, but she wasn't going to have time to change her uniform, so we just put in a part for a nurse. And then we thought, we have a nurse, we should have a doctor. There was a lawyer in town who'd made his fortune kind of bringing malpractice suits against doctors, so he got to be a doctor for a change. There was a developer in town who gave me $1,500 to get it started, so she got the lead role. And it kind of proceeded from there. Outrageously funny. And what we did was, I went to all the downtown restaurants and I said, I'm going to be doing this soap opera. I'm going to distribute a menu. This is pre-internet. This is like back in the early 1980s. I'm going to distribute a program every week to all 5,000 downtown workers that has an updated plot synopsis and some games and puzzles in it. And I want you to give me a menu of carry-out lunches, of bag lunches that people can order in the morning. So you would call in the morning and order your bag lunch, and then I had this local rock band who recorded their own version of Petula Clark's song Downtown that I blasted out onto the street on loudspeakers. So you'd hear that at noon, and you knew that you had 15 minutes to go pick up your lunch and get to this sort of central intersection that we would close down for the lunch hour to have the soap opera. Outrageously outrageous just thing. The first week I was taking place, I was sitting out there watching it, and this policewoman comes up to me. She is the largest human female I have ever seen. She's built like a linebacker, you know, she's giant, and she's got a whip and a gun and all that kind of cop stuff. And she hovers over me and she says, "Are you the person in charge of this?" And I thought, okay, heaven knows how many ordinance I violated. I'm blocking the fire lane, there's a sound ordinance, you know, I'm going to jail. And I said, yes, and she says, how do I audition? So she was in like that, you know, she had a part. So my goal was that 50 people per day, you know, 2% increase in restaurant sales. By the end of the first week, we had 500 people that Friday. By the end of the summer, we were averaging 2,000 people a day. Lunchtime restaurant sales were up 85%, and I was hooked. I thought, man, this is so cool. You can like increase sales and have fun at the same time. I loved it. It was wonderful. And I never looked back, never went back to architecture, got completely involved in downtown development, and have been doing this for 30 years. Absolutely love it. I've had a great time here in Northumberland County, going around, touring the different downtowns. And I wanted to talk tonight about some of the trends that I see in sort of happening in downtowns around the world in general, some of the economic drivers, some of the demographic shifts that I think are likely to change things in the future. And then I'm going to talk about 5 things that I think might be sort of important for communities here. There are many things we could talk about, but this is just kind of a sampling. And I wanted to start by just spending a couple of minutes talking about how it is that downtowns got to a position where we actually have to care about revitalizing them. What happened that they kind of came undone economically? Because, you know, up until really the 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, somewhere in there, downtowns everywhere in North America were healthy, vibrant places where you would come just to hang out. You would do all your shopping there. Many people in the community worked there. That's where you would meet your friends and neighbors. So you got to have fun. And then, you know, something bad started happening. In my hometown on the eastern shore of Maryland, I didn't really know what it was other than that businesses were dying and buildings were beginning to look kind of ratty. When I got older and started paying attention to what was happening, I realized that it had to do with a combination of things that were more or less unrelated, but kind of happened all at the same time. Like the development of big highways that made it easier for people to travel farther from town centers to go to work, or to go shopping, or to conduct business. The growth of the automobile industry as a result of that. And the increasing number of cars that households had, again, making it easier for them to travel longer distances. The development of credit cards, revolving credits, making it possible for us to spend more money on retail stuff than we actually have. Even the development of large-scale heating, ventilation, air conditioning systems that made it possible to climate control larger and larger buildings so that you could heat and cool big buildings and not be as dependent on nature as you might have been. Yeah, isn't she cute? She's adorable. Yeah, so, and as a result of all these things, people began moving farther away from town centers. They began moving into new sort of suburban subdivisions that popped up all over the place. And as people moved away from town centers, retail followed them. Retail is always a market follower. It is never a market leader. It goes where people are. It puts itself in the path of people. It needs that exposure. We heard that in the video from several of the merchants who were talking about the need to be in a high visibility spot. It's a kind of parasitic industry in that way. It needs to be where people are. So the first retail that moved farther away out onto the highway were convenience-oriented things like groceries and gasoline, things that you didn't want to travel long distances for. You would go to the closest one to where you lived. But it wasn't too long before we began seeing shopping centers and regional shopping malls popping up all over the place. And this was a complete game changer for how retail takes place. Completely changed the way that things happen. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Here's an example of, this is a graph. This is not an eye test. This is a graph that on the up and down axis is simply like sort of a range of things that you can buy, different categories. And on the horizontal axis are the price points at which you can buy things. Shopping malls pretty much took this piece out of the puzzle. Shopping malls sell apparel. That's what they specialize in. 85 or 90% of what they sell is clothing, shoes, or jewelry. Why is that? It's because when people shop for those things, they like to go to a place where they can try on different sizes, different styles, they can compare prices and brands, and they can make a decision after going to several stores. So they want to go to a place where they know that there's enough variety that they can make that selection. So what shopping malls did was they kind of provided that piece for sort of middle-income households, and that piece largely disappeared from downtowns, which is why downtowns don't have department stores anymore for the most part. That part just kind of went to the shopping mall. And because regional malls saturate a very large area, 80, 100 kilometers, they go that far out, it's really hard to put that piece back in because you need to have enough market demand to support not one or two of these stores, but a whole cluster of them together. So it was a huge transformation, and I still see communities that are kind of struggling with how do we put this piece back? Even here, several people have asked me, don't we need an anchor downtown? Don't we need to get that department store back? It's, in the era of Amazon and Walmart and regional malls, it's just not going to happen. So a huge transformation. These guys then came along, big box stores, and once again changed how retailing takes place, changing the relationship between retailers and product manufacturers, cutting out wholesalers and changing distribution patterns. And the piece that big box stores take out of the market, it looks kind of like this. I couldn't make the PowerPoint be quite as blobby as it should be, but it gives you a general sense of the chunk of the market that big box stores, discounters, and category killers claim. And if you look at the overlay there with regional shopping malls, you can see why it is that regional shopping malls are suffering. There are something like 4,500 shopping centers and shopping malls in North America that are dead or dying right now, and just sitting vacant or being redeveloped into new things. We built more commercial space than we have market demand to support, and that's the reason that downtowns became weak. So all these things happened. Community leaders thought we've got to do something to fix this, and a lot of communities did things that we learned later were not necessarily the best things to do, like thinking, oh, these antiquated buildings, they look so old, we should make them look modern like those new buildings going up on the highway. So let's cover them with this material. Or this heritage stuff means you can pick your own heritage. This is a community in Georgia that went Bavarian in the 1960s. They Bavarianized all their buildings. They hired a linguist to teach their merchants how to speak with a Bavarian accent. You can kind of hear that Georgian accent and then the Bavarian layer. You can imagine how successful that was. Merchants got a little bit lazy. We got a little bit carried away with parking restrictions. We stopped sort of paying close attention to business clusters, to how to put those businesses together in ways that make sense and create synergy on the street. I'm kind of joking, but we didn't manage downtowns for several decades. It took us a while to kind of figure out how to do that. And that's why we're here talking about downtown revitalization to begin with. In essence, over the course of a generation or two, we've created a drive-through, a car-oriented commercial culture, where we do business from our cars instead of on the streets. And instead of taking the time and effort that we need to cultivate locally owned businesses like this is the kind of commercial environment that we're building all over the world. You can go almost anywhere and see this kind of place now. Leaving in its wake downtown vacancies, and vacancies also out on the highway as well, because we keep building more and more stuff. This shows you how much in the U.S., how much commercial space there is per capita. In 1960, we had about 4 square feet of retail space per person. Now we have just over 40 square feet per person in the U.S. We have enough market demand to support about 17 square feet per person. So we have, more than twice as much commercial space as we need. You guys aren't doing so well either. Canada has 14 square feet per person, which is more than any other country in the world except the US per capita. The worldwide, China has half a square foot per person. The worldwide average is 4. It's just a lot of commercial space, and it's obvious, it's kind of, almost inevitable that the weak link, the one that had not been organized before, the downtown, was the one that was going to suffer. Another way to put this is to look at a map and look at retail catchment areas and how that's changed over time. I like to pick on Iowa in the middle of the US a lot because they're square. They're kind of square and flat, so they're easy. But what I've done is, in 1950, the average retail trade area of the average small town in North America was about 15 miles. That was as far as somebody was generally willing and able to travel to go shopping or to conduct business, to go to work. And so I've drawn 15-mile radii around all these communities, and you can see that there's not much overlap. There's hardly no overlap. And it's actually been that way for millennia, that communities have grown up a day's business travel away from their neighbor. It just kind of makes sense. Today, people are willing to travel on average 50 miles to go shopping, and so if you increase these radii to 50 miles, you can see what's happening. You have communities that are cannibalizing their neighbors for exactly the same retail dollars. There's a tiny little gap here just south of Des Moines. If you rush out right now, you can open a convenience store and get really rich. So in essence, what happens is that we get caught in this spiral, this downward spiral of disinvestment that begins with an increase in the amount of commercial space beyond the amount of retail dollars that we have to support it. And that leads to increased vacancies in the downtown, which means that rents dropped, which means that undercapitalized businesses moved in, which means that property owners didn't have the revenue that they needed to rehab and maintain the buildings properly, which means that property values dropped, which meant that the district looks uncared for, and the entire cycle just continues to perpetuate, getting a little bit worse and the district a little bit poorer as it goes on. So one of the challenges is to figure out where in each district are the best opportunities to kind of go in here and snip that cycle and intercede. And in some places it might be by improving buildings, and others it might be by boosting business sales. It kind of depends on the opportunities and strategic advantages that a community may have. It used to be that you would drive into a community, and from looking at the buildings alone, you could tell a lot about the community. You could tell from the materials that they used to build the buildings, what the natural resources were in the area, because this is a time when people were not going to ship building materials around the world from China. You could tell from the architectural style something about the period of time over which the community had developed. You could tell from the names on the buildings something about the people who shaped that community over time. You could just read a community's heritage, and that helps give a community a sense of distinctiveness, and that's one of the forces that gives something economic value. If there's just one of something, it's worth a lot more than if there are duplicates of it. You could be in a Walmart in Toronto or a Walmart in Los Angeles, and you wouldn't know the difference. But you could be in Port Hope, and you would know that you're in a place that's unlike any other place that you've been. So we've traded this basically for this. Anybody know where this is? Anywhere? Well, it's actually Renfrew, but how about this one? Marquette, Michigan, Kansas, Georgia, Wyoming, Ontario. They all look exactly the same. I photoshopped out the name of the business. Do you know what it is?
Pizza Hut.
How about this one?
Kentucky.
How about that one?
McDonald's.
How about that one?
Dunkin'
How
Donuts.
about that one? Isn't that
Arby's.
creepy? The buildings themselves have become part of a corporate branding system. They're part of a corporate identification system. And we're letting these corporations scatter their logos up and down the roads leading into our communities, eroding that sense of identity that the architectural heritage and traditions that we had built over time have kind of lost. We really need to make sure that the buildings that we're building in the future are as reflective of what Port Hope looks like, or Campbellford, or Coburg. We need to continue those local architectural traditions in order to maintain that sense of distinctiveness that give our communities identity. So looking ahead, here we are in 2013. What's on the horizon? There are a few things I wanted to point out, three things that are sort of major trends that I'm seeing everywhere that I travel. The first is the market impact of millennials, people who are basically in their early to sort of late-ish 20s now. In essence, these people are digital natives. They've grown up using the internet. from the time they were little. They didn't have to learn it when they were 5 or 6 or 10 or 20. They grew up using the internet, and it's changed the way that they think, and it's changed the way that they shop. Millennials spend less on things than their parents do. They are very concerned about environmental issues. They want to know where things that they buy come from. This is a skateboard that has a QR code on it that you can scan, and it tells you exactly where the wood in that skateboard came from. They want to know where the things they buy came from. They repair things rather than throw them away. They repurpose used things. This is a company that just a couple of guys, and they take old luggage and turn it into boom boxes. They support locally owned businesses. They share things rather than buy them. They rent things rather than buy them. This is an online business that rents designer handbags so that you don't have to invest a few $100s in one. You can just rent one for an event and then send it back. They buy things that last longer. This is a men's clothing company that is beginning to design and manufacture clothes that are meant to last for generations. So inside it there's a label, and the label has several blanks on it for the first owner to put his name and the date he acquired it, and the second owner to put his name and the date he acquired it. This is not like consignment sales like we knew before. This is intentional planning for things to last for many generations. It's a complete rethinking. They highly value interactivity and direct engagement, and this is really, really critical. This is a guy named Ben Cameron, and I heard him speak 6 or 7 years ago at a conference of the League of Historic American Theaters. I worked for 19 years for the National Trust for Historic Preservation in the U.S., and I was their representative to the board of this organization, and he was the keynote speaker for a conference. And his message, the audience were people who manage historic theaters, and his message was basically, if you're showing programming that has a beginning, a middle, and an end, you are not going to get millennials, because they're looking for content that they can shape. They want to be directly involved in the entertainment process and in shaping what the outcome of the story is. Radical idea. I began paying attention to that and thinking about, as I was looking at these kids who are now beginning to get into their 20s, how are they shopping? How are they working? What are the places they're choosing? What are they choosing to do? What's the sort of fluid world they live in where shopping online or shopping in a store, there's sort of this continuum to them. What does it mean? And I began seeing signs of interactivity popping up in downtowns everywhere. Things like, here's a community that simply put a bunch of rocking chairs out for people to sit and enjoy the day. Here's a community where they had an artist embed these bronze dance steps with directional arrows in the sidewalk so that you walk along, you see it, you suddenly stop and do a little foxtrot, and then you go on your way. These are not real birds. This is not real water. It's just trumped oil. This is a poem painted on the side of a building. There's a crosswalk painted like a piano keyboard. Just things that sort of enliven the experience of walking along. This is a community. One of the things I hear a lot about is, should there just be retail uses in ground floor spaces? Well, yeah, probably that's ideal, because what you want is the experience of theater, in essence, of people walking along the sidewalk and seeing constant activity in the windows. But as long as there's activity, it doesn't have to be retail necessarily. This is a dry cleaner that put its tailoring station in the front window, so there's a sewing machine, so when you walk by, you see somebody sitting there sewing, and it just catches your eye and keeps you moving along. Of course, she had gone to the restroom when I was taking a picture, but she's normally there. This will put you on the map for sure. This is a public restroom made of one-way glass. So when you're on the outside looking in, you don't see anything, but on the inside looking out, you see the entire site. People come from miles around to see what they're visiting. This is a fence where an artist has painted on the slats this image that you only see when you begin to see it on end, and all of a sudden an image emerges. Very, very subtle, interactive things that enliven the experience of being in the district. This is a place where it was cold outside, so what did? They put the audience inside the storefront windows and the entertainers out of the street, entertaining the audiences. Just sort of turning things upside down, making them more exciting. Millennials love discovering things for themselves, and this is a cool business example of this. This is a business called Bodega, which is a Spanish grocery store. This is actually a bodega. That's the outside of it. Inside it looks, kind of sloppy and messy. It's a bodega. In the corner of the bodega, there's a Snapple juice machine. And I don't know if you can see this in the back, but there's a little brass switch on the floor, a button. And when you step on it, the Snapple machine door opens up, and behind it is this men's clothing store called Bodega. And what they did, basically, they approached this bodega and said, look, you're only using the first 20 or 30 feet of your storefront. You've got all this vacant space in the back. We don't really need a storefront for what we have in mind. Could we rent the back of your store and put this business in there called Bodega? Packed with people. This business is doing $1,800 a square foot in sales. It is just a powerhouse. It doesn't have a sign other than the Bodega sign that says Bodega, but the kids love discovering it. They love the experience of going in. It's all advertised by word of mouth, buzz advertising. They love the experience of finding it. Interactive storefronts. This is there's a lot of stuff happening with video art these days. This is actually a video of a guy just sort of jumping around. He's advertising this men's clothing line, and what they've done is it's a rear projector, just like this little laptop projector here, that's shining on the inside of the storefront window on a scrim, and they recorded him on a loop. I'll show you in a second how they did it. And there's a heat sensor on the outside of the window. So when somebody walks by, the heat sensor senses that somebody is there, and the acrobat responds to the person on the street. So as you can imagine, it kind of freaks people out sometimes. But kids will line up, I'd say kids, millennials, will line up and watch this for hours and hours and hours. It's an easy thing to do. It's a simple thing to do for vacant storefront buildings. It's an easy thing to do for businesses that aren't necessarily retailers, just to put some kind of video art in the window to enliven things. Here's how they do it. There's the guy being filmed against a green screen, and there's the camera setup. It's really, we could do it with stuff we have in this room tonight, do something like that. And there are much simpler ways to do it too, but thinking about like getting sort of the video arts community involved and thinking about visual merchandising can make a big difference. This is in Nashville, Tennessee, and this is a street light switching box, electrical box, that on the back of it has speakers built in so that as you walk past it, it plays music recorded by Nashville artists, really sort of reinforcing the fact that you're in an arts district where music happens. Millennials love shaping their environment in different ways too, and geotagging is becoming kind of a big thing. This is a program called the Yellow Arrow Project. You can see that there's this yellow arrow sticker stuck on that parking meter there, and it has a telephone number on it and a code number. So for some reason, this cafe was significant to the person that put the sticker on there. They put the sticker on, they dialed the phone number on their cell phones, they punched in the code, and they record a story about why that place is important. Anybody else who comes along can then punch in the code number when they dial the number and hear that person's story about why the place is important. It begins to give the community just this layer of richness of personal experience that you're never going to get in a chain retailer. There's another one. Here's a version of it in Toronto called Murmur. Very similar thing. This is Fairbanks, Alaska, where they involved the community, especially millennials, in helping brainstorm new uses for this vacant hotel building downtown, a historic hotel building called the Polaris Building. And they created a project they called Looking for Love Again, looking for a new use for the building. And they put on the ground floor corner these two chalkboards. And on one of the chalkboards, they asked people to write down their memories of the Polaris Building. And then on the other corner, and there's the memories people wrote down, on the other, their hopes for the Polaris Building. And over the course of a couple of weeks, you could see these discussions taking place on the chalkboards, and the community came to some consensus about how it would like to see the building used. A similar thing, this is a community that was trying to generate ideas for some vacant storefronts in the downtown, and they put out these name badge stickers that say, I wish this was, and people would just write on it what it was and slap it on the plywood on the front of that storefront window. I wish it was a bike shop, I wish it was a Chinese restaurant, I wish it was a grocery store, locally owned. I wish it was owned by someone who cared. Come up with suggestions. So that's kind of big thing number one, is millennials are going to really be game changers for how retailing occurs. The second is community-raised capital. Community capital, invested in the kinds of businesses that we want to see. This is not a new concept. For years and years and years, places that you travel to, you'll find a really great restaurant that it turns out is owned by a group of 6 friends or a group of 7 attorneys or whatever it might be who kind of pooled their money and hired top-notch staff to operate the restaurant. Here's an example of a group of people, a group of investors who pooled their money, started a restaurant called Firefly Grill, hired a really young and up-and-coming promising chef, and offered him the opportunity to buy out their equity share over the course of 10 years. So that over the course of 10 years, he'll own the restaurant, they'll take their capital and gradually recycle it into other businesses that are starting up in the community. With the development of websites like Kickstarter and Indiegogo, a lot of new businesses in downtowns are getting started. This is a bakery called Sweet Bar that raised the money that it needed completely for startup on Kickstarter. They had a goal of raising $20,000. They raised $21,337 in that time frame, mostly by pre-selling products that they would sell once the place was open. They also sold things like naming rights to muffins they were going to be offering in their store. Offering for $500 the naming right to the cappuccino maker. This is an example from a really tiny town in Iowa. This is from Bonaparte, Iowa, which has 500 people, 488 people. They needed a grocery store. They didn't have one in the community. They sold 50 shares of stock for $2,000 each to people in the community, raised $100,000, started their own grocery store called Township Grocers. It's been there for 25 years. Another example, this is in Wyoming, a community that wanted some kind of a small discount department store in the downtown. They knew that Walmart was too big for them, that it would kill too many businesses. They wanted something, same thing. They sold shares of stock locally, raised money, created their own department store that they called the Mercantile. This is a community in Kansas that had a nice little variety store in the downtown, but the variety store, which was a regional chain, was telling them the rent is a little bit too much for us now. The community pooled its money, bought the building, and gives it to the variety store for free, just to stay there in the community and serve their needs. Lots and lots of variations on this beginning to happen now. This is a cool example. This is a chocolate company in the UK that it sort of started out as a mom and pop high street business, and they wanted to expand and become commercial and begin wholesaling chocolate to other retailers around the country and eventually around the world. And they went to conventional lenders to try to raise money and kept getting turned down. So they thought, okay, we're going to go to our Facebook friends. Their business was on Facebook, and they had 1,000 Facebook friends. They made a pitch to them that they would sell them bonds. These are actual financial instruments. Sell you a bond for £1,000 of the monetary unit, not the chocolate weight, but £1,000, and that you had to hold for at least 3 years, then you could redeem it. But the kicker was that instead of paying you interest in cash, they paid you interest in chocolates every 3 months, and people loved it. They would buy these as sort of like a fun thing to do for a spouse or something, and they raised the money they needed to build their production facility and expand. So that's kind of big thing number 2. Big thing number 3 is multiple distribution channels. Businesses using many, many different ways to reach customers and sell things. We have this thing called the internet now, and it makes it possible to reach customers anywhere in the world. And we have to really remember that our customer base is no longer the people who live in or even visit our communities, but could be global. And that's happening all over the world to transform small businesses. And it could be like doing more local sales by doing things like deliveries, like we used to do. This is a butcher shop that closes, at 4:59 p.m. every day. But what he has a vending machine outside the door, refrigerated, and when he leaves, he packs it up with fresh cuts so that you can stop by if you come by after he's closed, and you can still get a fresh cut of meat to take home for dinner. This is a yarn shop that was in a small town that didn't have enough market demand on its own to support a yarn shop. So what do? They have a mobile store that travels around between 7 different downtowns over the course of a week. And so you know that on Mondays it's going to be in your town square, or on Tuesdays it's going to be on this corner in your community. And between the 7 towns together, they have enough market demand. There's the inside of the van. Internet sales are hot for downtown businesses, or can be hot. This is a guy in Rising Sun, Indiana, who makes handmade concert harps out of his downtown storefront. Pretty much everybody in Rising Sun who needs a handmade concert harp has gotten one by now. There's not really any local market demand. All of his customers are online. They're from all over the world. But it is so fabulous to have his business downtown because you hear this harp music on the street as you're walking down the street. You could walk in and he'll show you around the shop and show you how he makes the harps. This is my reminder to tell you about the guy that I buy most of my shoes from. I buy most of my shoes, including the ones I'm wearing tonight, from this guy who has a shoe store in Oskaloosa, Iowa. Anybody ever been to Oskaloosa? My point exactly. It is not exactly a tourist mecca. No one goes there for really any reason. Unless you're like a business traveler and you're going there. And I was there on business travel when they were launching their downtown revitalization program in 1986. And I was going to a meeting and I was rushing down the street, the main street. Out of the corner of my eye, I see in his storefront window a pair of Rockport pumps that I really liked. I had a pair. I had two pairs actually. And I went in and I said, if you've got those in 6.5 medium, in navy blue, I'll take them right now. I don't need to try them on. I know that they'll fit. And he's like, yep, I've got them. Here they are. Sells them to me. I leave. I go back to my office in Washington, D.C. A month later, he calls me. He's tracked me down and he says, I noticed you were in a hurry when you were here. I'm like, yeah, what do you want? No, I was like, and he said, I just got in a shipment of those Rockports that you like, and I put aside a pair in every color in your size, in case you need more. I love this guy. He has called me every 3 months for, 27 years. Every 3 months to check on my shoes. About 9 years into our relationship, I think this is probably the longest term relationship I've had in my life. About 9 years into it, he sent me a foot imprint kit, so he's got an imprint of my feet. He knows my feet better than I do. I'll get shoes in the mail from him with a note saying this is a new brand. I thought it looked like you. I thought you'd like it. If you do, just shoot me an email and I'll charge your credit card, and if not, here's a mailing label you can print out and just send them back to me at my expense. This guy is fabulous, and I was there, again, 3 or 4 years ago. They hit their 20th anniversary of being in downtown development, and they had me back to see the progress they've made. And I went to see him, because I figured out if he had like 300 or 400 customers like me, he probably didn't need a local customer, which is good, because he probably doesn't have any local customers. I mean, he does have some, of course, but I said, Jim, how many customers like me do you have? And he said, I probably have about, 1,000, 1,200 like you. Over the course of time, business travelers stopped in. He's built an ongoing relationship with all those people. Now, Oskaloosa gets no tourists. They are not a tourist place. You guys are from tourist communities. You're from places that attract visitors. When you think about the number of people who come through your businesses and the opportunities to create those ongoing relationships, he doesn't even have a website. This is all done by telephone and email. When you think about what the power is, it's phenomenal. It's a phenomenal opportunity there, kind of just below the surface. I can almost feel it here bubbling up. This is a little town in New Hampshire where they had a bunch of businesses downtown that were beginning to sell things online, but it was taking too much time to do the order fulfillment. So what do? They go to a local high school business club and ask the high school students if they would like to basically operate a mail order fulfillment business for all those businesses in the downtown area. And these guys have graduated from high school and college now and come back and turn this into a full-time business, serving the entire region. So those are 3 kind of trends that I see happening throughout North America and around the world that I think are going to become increasingly important in shaping downtowns in the next decade or so. There are 5 things that I think might be particularly relevant here that I wanted to mention. The first is the need to focus on market-based strategies. As I was talking with people in the communities I visited, I've heard a lot about things like buildings that don't meet fire code and whether, questions about whether there's enough parking and the parking's in the right place. To me, those are questions about the symptoms of a market failure that's happened, but they're not addressing the market failure itself. And so the question I've asked a couple of people to imagine is, imagine that you're looking 10 years down the road and somehow, in some miraculous way, 10,000 new people have moved to your community and they all want to live downtown. All of a sudden, questions about how do you afford to rehab the buildings don't matter anymore because the market will be strong enough to make it happen. We need to think about what are those market-based strategies, what are those 1 or 2 major economic goals that we can align all the different activities that need to take place around. What it really takes to make a downtown economically healthy, I mentioned earlier, is having enough sales coming into the businesses there so that they're generating enough in revenue that they can afford the rent levels that the property owners need to maintain the buildings and to periodically rehab them, every 20, 30, 40 years rehab them. You can almost kind of pencil it out to the nearest, $500,000 or so in total sales that the district needs in order to make the buildings be economically healthy. The challenge is that there are lots of different combinations of uses that can be equally economically successful. You want to find a combination of uses that have market viability, that there are actually dollars to support, and that's a combination of local dollars and visitor dollars and these global dollars that you could get. and that have community desire, that really reflect the personality of the community. Some communities want their downtowns to be community serving districts. Some want them to be regional destinations. Some want to have locally owned businesses. Some want to have national retailers. There's no right or wrong answer. It depends on what fits the community's personality the best. And then finding that combination of uses. And instead of taking a shotgun approach to doing events and doing, building improvements, really being focused, focusing on those one or two major economic transformations that you want to bring about over the course of a decade or so. Here's an example. If you sort of divide all the sort of work that needs to happen to revitalize a downtown into one of these four broad categories: design, all the physical aspects of the district, building improvements and sidewalks and parks and public spaces; organization, the partnerships that you need; promotion, the marketing component; and economic restructuring, economic development, businesses that you recruit, the financial tools you put in place. If those are the four broad areas of work, these market-based strategies, these big transformations, need to cross-cut these areas of work. And where they intersect, that's where you can then begin to think about, okay, what needs to happen? What are the specific activities in the design realm or in the marketing realm that are going to help us achieve that big market-based goal? And that then begins to answer the questions about what kinds of events, what are the best store hours for us, how much parking do we need? You can't really answer those effectively until you know the question to that. Then for each of those actions, you can figure out who's going to do it, what's it going to cost, what's the timeline, where's the money going to come from. As an example, back in the dark ages when I was this downtown manager in Charlottesville, Virginia, one of our major strategies was to increase shopping by downtown workers, which is why we did that daily soap opera. We found in the area of design that we had to do things like improving parking lot lighting, because the workers were telling us that they were afraid that if they stayed at work too late and went to their cars, they were going to trip and stumble in a pothole. They wanted better lighting there. And that was keeping them from sticking around downtown longer. We had one-way street patterns that we had to reverse because it made it too easy for them to get out of the district and not come back in. We needed to change window displays more often because, if you're just catering to tourists, window displays always look fresh to them because they're just seeing it once. But if you're catering to people who work downtown, they see those displays every day, and after a week or two, they tune them out. They don't pay any attention to them. When you change the windows, they think you've got new merchandise, even if you don't. So we had to get the business owners to change their window displays more often. The same thing for the category of organization, marketing, and economic restructuring. That became our litmus test for these are the kinds of activities we're going to do, and it kept us very, very focused on bringing about this economic transformation over time. So that's kind of thing number one. The second is bringing housing back downtown. And I've asked in every community I visited, is there housing downtown? Is there housing upstairs? Millennials love living in downtowns. They love it. And they're not looking for low-income subsidized housing. They're looking for market-rate housing where they can walk out on the street and go to work and go to a restaurant. And I have not seen much. I've seen a tiny bit. But I think that there's a big opportunity there. Bringing industry back into downtown. Industry has always been a key important component of the economies of downtowns, of main streets. And it's obviously changed over time. We're not talking about industries like this, but I'm talking about small companies whose customers may be global, may be national or regional. And there are tons of these that are seeking out small town locations where the quality of life is great, where they can raise a family. They do business online globally, so it doesn't matter if their customers are necessarily local. Things like designers of all kinds, software engineers. I have a list of about 1,500 of these businesses that I've come across in the past couple of years. And you wouldn't believe the kinds of businesses there are. We need to bring those back into downtowns. We need to make it easy to invest in downtowns. We often create rules and regulations that make it more difficult to rehab a building or open a business on a main street than out on the highway. We don't want it that way. Development dollars are like water. They flow to the path of least resistance. And if we make the downtown the easiest place for investment to occur, or conversely, the highway strip the hardest place for it to occur, we begin to change the dynamic and make it easy for dollars to flow back into the districts. You need to make sure that you have the tools that you need, especially when it comes to capitalizing business startups. Think about that cycle of disinvestment that I showed. There are a lot of undercapitalized businesses that I've seen in my travels around the county over the past couple of days. We need to make sure that businesses are starting up, and there are lots of great tools out there. This is an example of a community that was trying to attract a group of 10 new restaurants at once to one block of their downtown that had a high vacancy rate, and they thought that by getting this critical mass of 10 restaurants there, it would really transform that part of the district. It's really expensive to start a restaurant. It costs a lot of money to buy the equipment and the furnishings, and it takes a couple of years to develop a clientele. So what they did was the city had about $1.6 million in public funding that it had put together that it made available for this program, where they approached established restaurateurs and asked if they would come open a second location here. So they're getting somebody with a track record. They worked with a couple of local banks who agreed to loan 80% of the money that these restaurants needed to start their businesses with solid business plans. Then the city used its public money to basically pay the loan repayment for the first 2 years, to basically defer it. The businesses then paid the city back at the end of that 10-year period of time. That gave the restaurants 2 years of sort of breathing room where they didn't have this crushing debt to repay, and they had 2 years to build up their customer bases. It's been in place for about 7 or 8 years now. Not a single restaurant has closed. It just continued to get stronger and stronger and stronger. Great tool for helping that particular capitalization problem. This is an example of a retail forgivable loan program. This one is in Mobile, Alabama. One of the best ones I've seen in my travels recently is in Waterville, Maine. A really tiny town. And basically what they do is they loan money to retail businesses that are high priorities on their list. They've done a market analysis, a market study, and said, these are kind of like the 10 critical businesses that we add to our mix. And we will make loans that we will forgive over the course of 5 years to businesses that agree to open one of these businesses, that locate in a ground floor space, that agree to be open at least 48 hours a week. They can specify whatever they want. And they use mostly tax increment finance funding to do that. Using pop-up businesses, the pop-up business model is a way to sort of cultivate retail businesses in a downtown. This is actually a business that's a permanent pop-up. It's called Grand Opening. It's a guy who had a storefront and he turned it into this permanent pop-up. And he holds competitions for businesses, people who have interesting business ideas, to basically try their business idea out there for 3 months. Every 3 months it turns over. So here it is when it was an auction house. Here it is when it was a ping pong parlor. Those that sort of gain traction then spin off into their own storefront in the downtown area. And those that don't, they just close and they put somebody else in there after 3 months. This is a community that has a business plan competition once a year for 6 months of free rent to people who have business ideas, and they get 6 months to try it out here. The property owners, it's vacant property anyway, they're not collecting anything in rent. And the Downtown Development Organization basically serves as the intermediary to vet the business plans, select the businesses, make sure the property is insured, and get it up and running, and help publicize it. Co-working spaces in downtowns. I know that there are some retail business incubators in the county, but bringing those small co-working spaces into the downtown area, where people who work at home right now, every community I visited has at some point mentioned we've got a lot of home-based businesses. A place where they can come and work with other people and collaborate on projects, start new businesses of their own there, share meeting space and kitchen space and utilities and things like that. These are popping up everywhere. This is a kind of cool one. This is in Arizona. It's called Gangplank, and it's actually sponsored by 4 major corporations in the area and a couple of local governments. And the people who work here, who are mostly independent website designers and marketing people and freelance writers, they don't pay rent. Instead, the cities and the corporations that are sponsoring it farm out some of their projects to them. So basically they work like 5 or 6 hours a week for one of their sponsors, and they get their rent for free as a way to do that. There's the inside of the co-working space. The most important thing, though, of all is to constantly innovate, constantly be thinking outside the box about how you can solve some of these challenging problems, and thinking in new and completely different ways about how to make it happen. You travel to places like this, all over the world, and you wonder, how on earth is this building still here? It's been here for 500 years or 1,000 years, and it's still here. How did that happen? It makes this place so wonderful. It's happened because in every single generation, there is somebody or some group of people who have consciously decided that they're going to take care of that place. They're going to invest in the buildings, they're going to mothball them, they're going to rehab them, they're going to keep them in good shape for the next generation, they're going to protect them, and make that place a distinctive place for generations to come. You are the ones who are doing this for Northumberland County. It is the best work you can possibly do, not only for your businesses, but for your communities. I applaud you for your hard work, and I can't wait to come back in a few years and see how you've done it. Thank you so much.
Kennedy Lawson Smith, ladies and gentlemen. Wow, awesome, inspiring, some great ideas there. Wow. We're going to get a lot of people here in the room thinking. We do have some of our panelists thinking as well, and we do have some questions for you, so we'd like to call them up. We're going to play a little bit of microphone roulette here, too. Teresa Rickerby from Creatures Great and Small. Yeah, you're going to come right up here. We're going to do the roulette.
Anyway, that was awesome. Thank you so much. I got a lot of great ideas. What is the value of Main Street to local residents and visitors?
This is one of these, how many angels can dance on the head of a pin questions. Yeah. What is the value of a Main Street to a community, in essence, is what you're asking. There are a lot of different answers to this question. There's sort of the question of what does it mean to a community to have a place that identifies what that community is, that you, like that picture of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. I show you that, you know where it is immediately, no matter who you are in the world. That ability to be able to see a place and know, oh, I know where that is, that's a distinctive place, is something that communities can't pay for. It's absolutely invaluable. So there's this sort of philosophical piece of community identity and shaping that. I look at it more pragmatically at the same time too, and think about all the investment that's taken place over the years in buildings and in public infrastructure. You know, the utilities that are there, the police, fire, ambulance service that's in place, everything that's there right now is a huge investment, and it's foolish of us economically to not invest in that and use it as completely as we can before building new commercial containers someplace else. We need to really make sure that downtowns are completely occupied. And there are communities, you know, I've seen some in the US, I've seen some in the UK that are doing things now, like passing laws that say, yes, you can build a new commercial building outside the downtown if we have vacancies, but you have to pay an impact fee to do so, and that impact fee benefits the downtown. Or you can't build a building larger than 10,000 square feet unless you can demonstrate that there is a real market need that cannot be met by a downtown building. As a way to just say, we're going to take full advantage of this investment that we've made over generations. It just makes economic sense. Then there's the environmental argument being made too. You know, all the embedded energy that exists in buildings. There was a study that was done in the 1970s after sort of the gasoline crisis then about how much energy is embedded in different building materials. One of the things they found was the amount of energy that it takes to manufacture 8 bricks and place them in a wall, all the way to the stair place them in a wall, equals a gallon of gasoline. So I once figured out if you have a typical 2-story brick-bearing wall, 20-foot by 100-foot downtown building, how much gasoline is embedded in the bricks alone in that. And it's enough to keep the average person in North America driving for about 8.5 years. So just in the gasoline alone, huge amount of embedded energy. I don't care what green rating a new building has, it's never going to be as green as an existing building. So there are lots of reasons, lots of economic, environmental, and philosophical reasons why downtowns are crucial to communities. Love it.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Anna Thompson from the Blue House in Brighton.
Thank you, Kennedy. That was very interesting. Can you give us 3 key strategies to increasing visitor traffic to our main streets?
3. This is like, what are your favorite 3 movies? It's so hard. Well, I don't know about 3, but I will give you one that's really great, okay? And then we'll take it from there. And that one is, I think that visitors come to places where there's an authentic sense of place. They want to come to some place that is a real community and experience what that community is like. You're more likely to have long-term visitors, a long-term tourism base, by becoming the best place you can for locals than by developing any kind of, fake, glitzy, water attraction or whatever it might be that draws people in, because that's kind of short-lived. People go to authentic places. So I think that by focusing actually not on developing the tourism base, but on developing the best possible place you can for the community itself, not just locally serving customers, but great, you want to have cool, interesting, dynamic businesses that serve customers everywhere, online and in person. Put the collection together that means something to your community, and people are going to be drawn to it. So that's kind of the big thing. Then there are lots of other, sort of small things that I think can buttress and reinforce that. I'm a big believer in buzz. I think that just sort of like that example of bodega. great example of just getting a few stories out there floating around, and people will come for that reason. Making it a pleasant experience for them in all the ways that you can sort of think of. A strong sense of entry when you get to a community, I think, is important. So we talked about this today, in fact, in Brighton, about when you come into the main intersection, whatever it might be, having it be a pleasant experience in a place that tells you you've arrived now in an important place. It doesn't have to be big and expensive. It can just be sort of low-key and tactical, but that's important too. But I think the biggie is really focus on being the best place you can be locally, and that's what's going to attract tourists.
Thank you very much, Anna. Doug and Heather Grant from Colborne Home Hardware. Well, Doug.
Thank you. Yes, I just have to say that was amazing, and I didn't take notes, so I don't know if we have this recorded or not, but I might need a copy. Anyways, my question is, what are 3 activities businesses can do to improve local shopping?
What is it with you guys in threes? Don't you have like 7 dwarves and 3? Okay, 3 things businesses can do to attract local shoppers. Is that what it was?
Yep, local shoppers. Yeah, keep them coming in. Keep them.
Yeah, well, I have 30, but let me see what I can. I think among the things that are important, and there are many that are important, are thinking about the hours, the store hours. I've pointed out many times that it's the same number of hours between 9 and 5 as there are between 10 and 6. The town, Oskaloosa, where I buy my shoes from, a guy there once told me, a different guy, told me if you're open from 9 to 5, you're catering to the unemployed, which I thought was a great message. So making sure that your hours match the available hours for people in the community is an important thing. Or if you can't do that, being creative like the guy at the butcher shop who had the vending machine. It's a brilliant low-cost solution to a problem. But finding ways to make your products available to visitors, to customers, locals, when it's convenient for them is important. I think one of the great things about main streets that shopping malls can never do or replicate is that main streets have traditions and they have quirky little things, and the more that you can sort of make those sort of shared wonderful secrets in the community, that's great. You can do customer loyalty programs and schemes and things that kind of play on that. I think that's really it. I think it's store hours, great customer service, of course.
I agree with you.
When I was in college, I went to my hometown downtown. There was a women's clothing store downtown. My grandmother had broken her ankle and was going crazy because she couldn't go out and shop for fall shoppings. So I went to the store and I walked. I hadn't been there since I was probably 14. Walked into the lingerie department and I said I'd like to get a nightgown for my grandmother. And the sales clerk says to me, "Your grandmother Jackie or your grandmother Viola?" And I was like, "Is there a sign behind me that says?" And I said, "Jackie," and she's like, "Oh, well, she's a size 14, and she already has this one in pink, but I think she probably like." It's like, "Oh, this is unbelievable." That's something you're never going to have happen at Walmart. So hours, great service, and finding ways to meet customers when they're available. I think are the important things.
Thank you, Doug and Heather. From Trent Hills, Shelley Holmes. Shelley's the Trent Hills Chamber of Commerce president.
There's a formidable start.
Well, you've answered a lot of these questions, I'm going to tell you, and it's been incredibly enlightening. This question is from Monica Johnston, and it says, how can we make our Main Street more a destination? And where you have just spoken on local visitors, I believe that what Monica is looking for is more of the visitor type of destination.
Well, again, I'm gonna stick to my story. I really think that that making a community, making your Main Street one that reflects the personality of the community is what is ultimately going to appeal to visitors. That's what's going to get them there. There are things you can do to make the visitor experience easier. Like one of the things I found that's sort of a weird thing out there is that if I were searching, if I were going to go to a community and visit it, and I Googled, that community and its Main Street, I would often find a website for a DDA, for a Downtown Development Association, or for a Business Improvement Association, and I'd have to look through the minutes of the meetings, and I'd have to look through sort of the committee structure before I would find out here's what's going on tonight. Here are the 15 events happening, here are the restaurants that are open, here's the, whatever. So I think thinking about things from a visitor's perspective, really looking at it from their eyes and making sure that those resources are there online is really important, and I often see that missing. I think we look at it from our own prism of we're the organization making this happening and not thinking about, I don't care who's doing this, I just want to have a great meal and see what's playing at the local theater. So I think that's kind of important. All those things, sort of low-touch things that make the experience more pleasant. But really, the big zinger is make it the community that your community wants it to be. That's what's going to get the visitors. It always turns out that way.
Thank you very much, Shelley. Deborah Whalen Payne from Port Hope and the Summerhill Bed and Breakfast has a question.
Thank you, Kennedy. That was really informative and, of course, entertaining. I don't have a three in my question. It's just one straight line. How would you establish collaboration between the Main Street business owners to strengthen the entire business community?
Oh. This is a good question, and it has many, many different answers, depending on how many glasses of wine we've had. But I think there are a couple of sort of questions embedded in there that I'll answer, and I might get to sort of an answer there. One is the role of merchants in the overall downtown development process and the revitalization process. And I have, in my years of being a downtown manager and then working with downtown organizations, I've seen so many organizations frustrated because they have meetings and the merchants don't show up to the meetings. And it hit me one day, the reason that is happening is because everybody has a contribution to make to the downtown revitalization effort. Something that's best from their perspective and their time commitment and stuff. The best commitment merchants can make is running the best business they possibly can. And so I got to this point where I thought, if I see merchants in a meeting, I want to ask them, why aren't you in your shop? Why aren't you doing, or why aren't you thinking about doing a better job in your shop? So I'm exaggerating a little bit, of course, but I think that one of the parts of that is presence in meetings is not necessarily a benchmark of collaboration. That's sort of thing number one. Thing number two is that independent businesses are called that for a good reason. They are independent businesses, and you're always going to have some businesses that just don't work well together. Just always. You're going to have some that work together very naturally. And I think it's good to go for those natural partnerships. Businesses will find other businesses who have similar customers or sell similar products where it makes sense for them to sort of glom together and discuss tactics and market together. But we shouldn't force partnerships that don't really make sense. They're all big districts when you think about all the different moving parts. But then, on the other hand, another thing is, have fun with this. I mean, we can make this be so hard and so difficult and so challenging. And in reality, downtown development is the most fun thing there is. It is so much fun that if we just have get-togethers every now and then and just kind of celebrate our successes and have fun events that everybody can do what they want to do to be part of, we're going to be building camaraderie and helping people get to know each other. Then there's always just plain dirty tactics, which we do sometimes too, which is have contests for downtown business and property owners, where they have to actually go into different businesses to find something or to discover something or answer some question. And in the process of doing so, they learn about each other.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Deborah. Fun. There was a whole, that seemed to be a big theme through part of this too. I mean, there's a lot of fun ideas that downtowns have come to revitalize themselves. I'm going to ask you one final question. This one could be a biggie. As a visitor, new here, you've been touring around over the last couple of days, did you identify any underexploited characteristics of our main streets in Northumberland County?
Yes, I found a few. I mean, I think, obviously, I spent an hour and a half in each place, so I'm really speaking as an outsider here and a novice, and I've only begun to scratch the surface, but there were things in every community that seemed really obvious to me. The districts that had great waterways in them, why on earth there is not housing right there in the downtown? Market rate housing is, it just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, it seems like a sort of a natural to have it there. I saw a lot of attention to how do we get visitors, and not a lot of attention to, which is why I kind of emphasize this, to how do we make this a great place for us. And I think that that's a real missed opportunity, because in every single community I found really creative, innovative, hardworking people, you know, who really want to make this happen. But it's easier to do it for yourselves, and then everybody else is going to come as a result of that. Lots of great heritage businesses, fabulous businesses that you, buildings that you cannot, you know, you just can't possibly replicate, you can't rebuild, that need help. But that's easy to do. Again, it's a question of sort of bolstering market dynamics and putting the right incentives and tools in place, so that you don't lose those buildings. I also found, speaking of heritage businesses, which is, I found a lot of businesses that have been here for 50, 75, 100 years. Businesses that they themselves are part of a community's history, and they have craft skills that they've been carrying on for generations, that are really meaningful, and I would promote the heck out of those. I mean, I think that's just, you know, you're not going to find that in, you know, cities that are dominated by shopping malls and shopping centers. It just doesn't exist. Great natural resources. In many of the districts I visited, I found clusters of businesses. I don't mean physically located near each other, but businesses that are sort of part of the same industry cluster. Like, let's use home furnishings as an example. A district that might have a paint store and a couple of home furnishing stores and a kitchen cabinet shop. And they're dispersed throughout the district, but they're not near each other. And I look at that and I think, oh my gosh, if this were on this block, as you drive in this way, I would think this is the place to come for home furnishings. There is so much variety here, and it can support, in addition to that, then, you know, stores that sell window treatments and floor coverings and, you know, plants and sort of the whole thing. So I think that there could be some thought given to sort of business placement among existing businesses, and that's something that evolves over time, obviously, as you have vacancies pop up. I could go on for a very long time, and I won't. Let me just say, I think every place has great resources and assets that are going untouched, and I think the key really is to give some critical thought to what are those one or two major economic transformations that we want to bring about over the course of the next decade, and then what does that mean in terms of property development and business development and marketing activities.
Great answer. Thank you very much. If I can get Carrie to come up for just a second. Kennedy, we have a small token of our appreciation for you. What a fantastic talk this was. I'm sure everybody here is inspired to go back to their own downtowns and revitalize. I'm sure there's a few people out there. How many people out there right now are writing their own soap opera? I know Andrew Hall is. We were talking about that in the back of the hall. Kennedy Lawson Smith, ladies and gentlemen, it has been a great pleasure. We do have some door prizes to give away, but before we do that, we are going to take a look forward to October and Prosper in Northumberland coming up in Campbellford.
Hi, I'm Nancy Allison with the Trent Hills and District Chamber of Commerce and Tourism Office. I'm really excited to invite you to Trent Hills on October 17th for the next Prosper in Northumberland event. It'll be held here at the Aaron Community Theatre in Campbellford. Remember, save the date, October 17th. Stay tuned for more details.
There we go, the next event in October in Campbellford.